Hello again, everybody. This is Steve coming to you with another Writing Musings episode. This is number 2. I got a couple of quick things to cover with you guys, and I thought I would go over these. These are things that really don't need a lot of information. I mean, I could probably talk about a couple of these for an hour, 2 hours if I wanted to, but I think by now, with what I've already given you, all I need to do is throw the spark at you and let you run with them and research them and come up with the ideas and stuff like that. So, I've gotten you started. I've given you the, the hand-holding to start with. Now it's my, my job just to throw ideas at you and let you run with them. The first one, I ran into this video recently, and this is actually really, really interesting and a good learning opportunity. If you're running with any kind of society, doesn't matter if it's high-end or low-end. When I say high-end, I'm talking like high-tech, spacefaring, stuff like that, or low-end where it's medieval, fantasy, stuff like that. You're still going to be dealing with food preservation in one form or another. The one I'm going to show you here is a YouTube video. Shows you how to do it the old way. We're talking like 16, 17, 1800s, even way back into antiquity. Let me switch over to that. This is pickling seasonal vegetables in a 200-liter wooden barrel. For those from America, that's going to be a 40-gallon barrel, basically. Because it's roughly the same size, although that might be closer to 55 gallons, but I think the old wooden barrels were only 40 gallons. But anyways, this video, they don't say much. You just kind of watch, and then you get ideas, and you can go out and research them from there. But what this is good for is, like, if you have soft vegetables, one of the things about soft vegetables, tomatoes, cabbage, stuff like that, they don't last long. They'll get you probably halfway through the winter, and then you're done. That's why, when I mentioned in the other video that you could put the tomatoes up there, some brands of tomatoes, breeds of tomatoes will last 3 to 6 weeks, depending on how you store them and depending on what the breed is. They're all hybrids, so you're not going to get heirlooms like that, so you got to watch out for that. And again, I'm not saying like, oh, the world's going to end tomorrow, this is what you need to do. I'm talking about your writing. Because, when you're working in the writing, you treat this just as though you were doing this in the real world because you want to make this as believable as possible. That's why you need to have accuracy in your writing that fits the actual real world. Now, if you have another world where the rules of science are different, yeah, forget what I said. Go make your own rules, do what you need to on that one. But if you're following what most writers do, which is to take established rules of science and history and run with them in the story to make the story as believable as possible, then you need to look into these kind of things. There's other videos on YouTube. I mean, YouTube's a cornucopia for information like this. There's other videos up there that tell you how to actually prepare and cure vegetables and things like that. So this is something that's good to research, because and the nice thing about some of this stuff that I've researched is I've gone through researching things for my books and looked at some of it and been like, holy cow, I can use that for myself for such and such a situation. So there's kind of a kickback benefit in that sense, that it doesn't just help you in the book. There are some things you will learn while you're researching for your books and your stories that will benefit you in real life. So it's worth the effort because, like I say, there's a double benefit to it. But my focus is just, here's what you need to know for your book. If you can find a way to fold that back into your regular life, go for it. So, like I say, don't let that stop you from researching that, oh, this might benefit my real life as well. I mean, heck, take the double benefit. It's totally worth it. So now, here's another thing that I wanted to throw in there. I don't think I got it into my checklist for this or outline for this particular video. I might have. I forgot if I did or not. But I include this picture here because one thing you will want to consider when you're doing your descriptions and you're describing your landscape, and I didn't mention this in the other ones, but you want to include things like this, like the grass, the flowers that are coming up in here, the trees, the clouds, the golden color of either grain or just the grasses. because that will really add color to your story. That's a good thing to have when you're describing. If you need a picture like this to help you describe the scene, do it. You know, I'm not against example art. Matter of fact, I use a lot of example art. So, because it helps you if you can find something as really close as possible to what you are seeing in your mind. It helps you to solidify that image and be able to describe it, because now you've got something to look at and work off of, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you don't have to go completely off the top of your head, because sometimes when you're doing it completely off the top of your head, that vision will blur and then you struggle and stuff like that. So if you find one like this that is most closely matches your stuff, you know, if you're going back and forth between the picture and the book, you're not going to lose the image. And this will actually help your writing and help improve it. And it's a writing aid. Some people will consider it a crutch. You know, if you're like really elitist, yeah, it would be a crutch. But for the normal writer, having something like this is perfectly acceptable and a very useful writing tool. So totally worth having. I just went back to my outline, and hey, yeah, I actually did have that in my outline. So I didn't want to flip back to it, so I just couldn't remember if it was there or not. But yeah, it's there. So anyways, item 3, multiverse. This is more for you sci-fi writers. Although it can be used in fantasy. I mean, they use it in Marvel and DC universes a bunch. I've seen it used in fantasy before. If you look at the Warcraft movie, that was a multiverse thing, because they moved from one dimension to another dimension, and going from dimension to dimension is essentially traveling across the multiverse. Again, not going to go into a lot of detail on this. I've used the multiverse in my books. Dark Earth is a good example of where the multiverse was used. It's a great plot device. There's a lot you can do with it. Depends on how deep you want to get into it. It can be used in sci-fi, and it can be used in fantasy. Do not use it in historical fiction unless you're doing alt history. And if you're doing alt history, be very sparing with it, or be very careful how you use it, because it can ruin the story. So anyways, go research the theory of the multiverse. There is bucket tons of information out there about it. How it works, different ways people think it works. You know, there's like the multiple worlds idea. There's the multiple dimensions. There was even a comic series made on that with a Crisis on Multiple Earths, I think, or Infinite Earths, something like that. So it's a very, very useful, very rich way of writing. It doesn't work as the perfect solution in every story. Matter of fact, I recommend using this one sparingly. If your story needs it or it can use it, use it. If it doesn't, don't. I remember one other one where I used the multiverse, but I didn't jump between dimensions. It was Weaver's Forge. And this was just a case of people, or extra-dimensional people, coming into our dimension. Star Trek Enterprise used it a bit. Star Trek Discoveries used it. Star Trek the original series has used it. Star Trek The Next Generation used it. Voyager used it. Again, it wasn't used a lot, but it was used occasionally, and it's a great story engine for a lot of things. So I'll leave it at that. Technology builds technology. Now here's one that a lot of people don't think about. When it comes to the ability to do things technologically, technology is required to make certain things happen. It's like if you look back in ancient Egypt and the technology that they had, they could only do certain things because they only had certain technology. And it requires certain technology to do certain things. If you don't have that base foundational technology, you can't do the next thing. That's just a fact of nature. Like, you can't go back to ancient Egypt, walk down the street, step into a blacksmith shop and start making CPUs. You just can't do it. I ran into that problem with Lion on the Water, where the guys out in space had all this really high-end technology, but once you got down on Bersail, you were basically dealing with kind of Roman era level technology. So, and Tagani, I mean, he's an android. He's got all this high-end technology in his body. He's got, all of this knowledge and everything like that. But he had to kind of, quote-unquote, dumb it down because he had to deal with the limited technology of the Yigzan people at the time. Because you got to remember, these guys are living, like I say, like first century Roman era level technology, if that. So you couldn't go and build all this really high-end stuff. Matter of fact, it took the Yigzan, I think, 1,200 years before they could even start heading into space. And this is with Tagani giving them a big kickstart. And then you had Yadish, I think it was. I can't remember. It was a right-hand man to Pasiel, but you had them helping out the Yigzan. They would have injected technology here and there, but you got to go up against tradition. You've got to go up against habits, because people don't like to change quickly. So there's that hindrance to technological change. Now, I mean, we change fast, but we're used to changing fast. If you're used to something being the same for 2, 3, 4 generations, somebody comes in with a new widget or a wazoo or whatever like that, that's generally going to take a while before it's openly accepted. I mean, you look at the quote-unquote big technological changes even in ancient Egypt. Those were over decades and centuries of research, and just a lot of it was just doing the same thing over and over and over again, but kind of nudging people in the direction of something newer and better. A lot of experimentation, things like that. So, as technology goes and grows, things speed up. I mean, you look at, like, Star Trek Discovery does a great job of showing this in the third season, where especially when they roll into Starfleet headquarters and they're looking at things and like, man, in our time, like 1,000 years ago, this was all theoretical, and now this stuff is actually in motion. This is actually in use. You don't know how long it was, but it's 1,000 years before you actually see the stuff. And it took us 2,000 years from ancient Rome, first century AD, to the 1960s, 50s, something like that, before we even started going into space. I mean, yeah, okay, we're shooting stuff out to Mars now. We're throwing things outside the outside the solar system and stuff, but it's going to be a couple more centuries at the very least before we're able to do anything FTL or long distance or sleeper ships or anything like that. There's a lot of learning to do still. So, and our modern day space program, as advanced as it is built on what those guys did in the 50s and 60s. It's built on the German engineering of the 30s and 40s. And like I say, you have a lot of social and habitual things you have to overcome to get those technological pushes, but once you get to a point where the people are willing to come along at the speed you're trying to push forward, then it becomes easier. But even then you run into problems of, okay, we learned this new thing, now we've got to implement this new thing, now we've got to make it mainstream, and then we've got to make it kind of old tech. When I say make it old tech, basically you look at, for anyone who's old like me, you remember originally they had like records, and then they started bringing out 8 tracks, and then tapes, regular audio tapes, and then VCR tapes, and then that moved into Laserdisc, CDs, DVDs, Blu-ray. That was not a quick progression, because some of that too is going to be funding, and like when they made, they had like Betamax versus VHS. Betamax was the better technology, VHS was the cheaper one. So monetarily speaking, everybody went with VHS. So we kind of lost out technologically on that, but then VHS was eventually superseded by the Laserdisc and the CD-ROM and then the DVD and eventually Blu-ray, and now everything is digital downloads. The DVDs are pretty much done. I mean, you will still find DVD players, but you know, you can't hardly find, well, you can't find VHS anymore. They don't make the players anymore. It's like floppy drives. You can't get floppy drives, you can't get floppy disks. And yet those were the big technology back around 2000. And it's what, 2023? And now we have pen drives, which are essentially the new floppy disk. We have well, DVDs are done. Blu-ray's pretty much done. So, you know, it's just like I say, it's little things like that. I'm dragging this on too much, but anyways, you get the idea that it's technology builds technology, and you got headwinds against that technology. You've got habits, etc., etc. I mean, I'm repeating myself. I admit that. I'm kind of letting my mind stew and see if there's anything else that I need to talk about. But anyways, I will leave it that way. Point number 5. This one will be real quick. What I'm going to do in the future, I mean, I'm just going to mention it here, is on the fly role play. This is a great way to practice story building. I've done a few examples of it, short examples of it in previous videos. I think I'm going to do a longer one where I'm just going to sit down. I will pick an idea. I will pick a topic, and I will role play it. I will story tell it, and I'll do it on a recording so you can hear kind of how the thought process works and how, you know, I think my way through different things. So like as I'm doing the story, I'll hit problems and I'll stop and be like, okay, they did this. No, they actually did this, and you watch that creative process, and it's that creative process that you need to refine, and that will help you perfect your characters, perfect your scenes, because you'll learn how to feel out that story. Like you'll be, and if you want to record yourself while you're doing these, do it. It's a great way to take audio notes that you can write down later. Like if you want to experiment with a character, you want to find out how does that character act, how do they think, you know, because you're gonna be, you know, you want to be that character as much as you can be behind their eyes, and stuff like that to get the best feel for it. You want to not just write the scene or see it in your head, you want to live the scene. Everything that's happening, you want to be there in the middle of it, as physically as you can in an imaginative state, to the point where, you know, it's almost real. You know, like if there's a fight, you can hear the swords clashing, you hear the bombs going off, you can hear the lasers going toot 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 toot, you know. You can feel the excitement and fear of the moment, and the desperation and other things like that. So that's something I want to go over, because that's a big tool for ironing out problems or building ideas in your books. And the last one is YouTube. I was sitting here thinking about this morning. I've had a few times I've said, you know, I'm going to put such and such in the comments section for you so you guys have it. And then I'm like, wait a second, did I ever go back and actually add that? You know, I'm a little scatterbrained about that. I'll mention about that in the recording, and then I'll be sitting here and it's just like, think about it afterwards, like, oh man, did I actually add that to the comment section? Because I've got a bunch of them that are already up. If I mention something in a video and I forget to put it in, not the comment section, the description. If I mention something in a video and I forget to put it in the description, please let me know. I will correct that. Like I say, I'm not perfect. I forget things. So, you know, I'm going to make that mistake. And if I did forget something that I was supposed to put in the description, let me know. I will add it. I try not to forget stuff like that, but, you know, hey, human. So, anyways, I think that's everything. Oh, look, 20 minutes. Yay. I still got 20 minutes out of this one, so... Anyways, I will leave it at that, and I will catch you guys in the next video.